Hello, fabulous superstar Aries. Welcome to your horoscope for the month of June 2025. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. And a limited number of consultations are available with me or with Andy of Wise Ass Astrology over the course of this summer. New dates have just been released of availability. You can learn a lot more and book your reading now. Links are below. This really is a massively important month. It is going to be on the 9th of June that Jupiter changes signs. A massive planet like Jupiter changes signs about once a year and spends about a year moving through a different part of the chart, which means over the course of about a 12-year period of time, you get Jupiter moving from one area of life to another as it makes a way all the way around the zodiac, and it makes the way all the way around your chart at that. Well, it is going to be on the 9th that Jupiter will move into the foundation of your chart, having to do with home, the past, the living situation, and your family of origin, your parents in particular, where that applies. And normally Jupiter, wherever Jupiter goes, brings big blessings. It is Jupiter that has been conceptualized by the ancients as the higher benefic, meaning higher blessings. It brings with it a protective measure as well. However, with this month, at least for the first couple of weeks of this transit and until the end of the month, the energy isn't going to be quite as helpful as we would like. It's not just that. When the sun meets Jupiter once a year, astrologers like to call that the luckiest day of the year. But even that is going to find its energies subdued in some ways, mixed in with a measure of disappointment that we can't necessarily see is actually working to our advantage, especially not in the moment. Now, this becomes especially true for you. And that is because it is first Jupiter that is going to square Saturn and Neptune newly in your sign before moving on. And we have Jupiter meeting the sun for the luckiest day of the year, also squaring Saturn and Jupiter. While this is energy that's going to feel free floating for the last 2 weeks of the month, some key dates to keep in mind are the 15th and 19th of June. That is when Jupiter with precision is going to square first Saturn and then Neptune. And then on the lead up to the new moon on the 25th, that's the 22nd and 23rd, that the sun perfects those same squares and then rushes forward to meet Jupiter in the sky and form this triple conjunction with the new moon. And normally new moons bring with them new beginnings. We have that here. A new moon hand in hand with Jupiter is thought to be incredibly fortunate. We have that here as well. But again, we get those squares of Saturn and Neptune. So that's the astrology piece of it, right? That's all the tech talk to it to say, yeah, I mean, Saturn and Neptune are in your sign, which means a need to trust, a need to turn it over, a need to understand where you have power, but also where it is that you don't. And just when you think you are so sure, it can feel that much more disillusioning. The higher lesson with these big planets in your sky is to take ownership for your happiness, for what it is that you do have an ability to bring a container to. Other than that, you turn it over, you give it to the universe. And that is going to be a very acute lesson now. And especially in the context of your past, your family, your living situation. You do your best and you surrender the rest always. But with a sky like this, it might feel especially frustrating in some way that there's some type of new energy, new chapter you're trying to make happen related to the living situation. And it just might feel like it isn't coming together as easily or as smoothly as you may like. Trust the disappointments now. There's, on the one hand, this feeling like this is so lucky and so fortunate and everything should be so great. Why does it feel like it isn't coming together? And we just can't see in the moment how it really is to our advantage, the things that might not feel like they are not working. Now, if you do end up feeling like you are making progress in some way on a matter having to do with your living situation, especially if it has something to do with buying, selling, moving, or attracting a new roommate, there's just so much hopeful but also illusionary energy at play here there are some factors that are trying to make themselves very clear. And it's better to catch them early rather than late. There might be a desire for change on the home front, or maybe even a renewal of certain family dynamics, family connections. And yet, ultimately, this can be a time that encourages you and really does strengthen you as part of understanding who you are, what your rootedness is, what it is to be at home with yourself, and whom it is that you consider family, and whom it is perhaps that no longer is. New opportunities to change your living situation should really be taken with patience to the best of your ability. If it's right, it'll be there, even if you ask questions that actually may end up being incredibly important for you now. Now, moving back earlier into the month, June 11 is when we are going to have a full moon in fellow fire sign Sagittarius, and that full moon is going to speak in supreme harmony with Mars. At that point, Mars is beginning to wrap up its move through the sign of Leo, a heart-oriented part of the sky where Mars has been moving in and out of since the autumn season of last year, because that was when we began a Mars retrograde season, spending part of the time at the foundation of your chart, but a significant amount of time in this heart-oriented part of the sky for you. Now, to me, as I look at this is so promising. It's hopeful, it's energized, it's enthusiastic, and it is about feeling more connected to the world, feeling a larger sense of possibility to the world around you. And there may be real developments related to a matter having to do with immigration, citizenship, higher learning, or legal matters, even just long distance travel. More personally, this may orient you around an understanding of your own relationship to the world, philosophically, literally, spiritually, or otherwise. We get this very nice, very fortunate, and for you in particular, with Mars being your ruling planet, feeling that much more secure, that much more lifted with the energy of this time. Well, all of that is here with you at this moment. And it can be at this moment that it feels as if your world expands. There's a sense of possibility and a sense of hope with you. And that is something to be cherished. A more optimistic possibility, yes, is possible. And so let yourself connect to the world, because, as I said, the more dominant energies are going to start kicking in just days later, that in one way or another are going to feel like they are bringing you home or grounding you in some way, having you deal with matters that are much more foundational and fundamental than the more lofty, aim-oriented energy of the full moon might have you believing. Now, where it comes to matters of love, I'm going to focus on that full moon energy. And look, there's a lot of hopefulness with that. I love where that full moon is actually taking place, because it is an adventurous, expansive part of the sky. The fact that Mars is in a part of the sky for you that has to do with romance, flirtation, and what the heart is really wanting, well, your heart is likely to feel that much more lit up, that much more open at this time. However, here's the thing, just days later, on the 15th of the month, Mars will square Uranus. And this is the type of aspect that happens usually about once a year. And it can be rather surprising and sometimes even a bit jolting as well. And I'm sorry to say, but it does happen that with Mars, just before Mars is gearing up to leave this heart-oriented part of the sky for you, it's like in an instant, some light comes on, something is illuminated, even if it's uncomfortable and even if it's hard. And what you see, there's something honest about it, and it may end up feeling like a moment that's very all or nothing for you in some way. So just pace yourself as you navigate this time, knowing that more is going to come forward. But it's a necessary moment because it helps you to understand where your heart is at. And from there, you immediately go to those deeper lessons, understanding the foundation, understanding what your truth is, reconciling yourself with what's been illusion and fantasy and what is reality. Even if it's hard, it is absolutely part of aligning you with greater, more honest love than you've known before. Now, where connections are good, This is a moment of truth coming out that brings you closer and helps you to see the work that truly knowing another person sometimes involves. But if that isn't the case, if some connection, whether someone new or someone who's been around a long time, well, if it isn't something to navigate forward with, that disappointment, well, it'll feel kind of undeniable. You'll have to do something about it. And part of that is being honest with yourself. So for those of you open to meeting someone new, enjoy yourself under the light of the full moon. That full moon is on the 11th of the month. I love its overall energies, very joyous. However, as we navigate a little bit further, particularly once it is that we get to the 15th of the month, it may feel as if the energies start to shift very quickly. And so, on the one hand, you may know, you might be open, you might be excited about possibility, but then on the other hand, there's this sense of needing to accept or at the very least admit what it is that in an instant becomes quite undeniable about somebody that maybe you had your eye on, that there was hope for. If it is honest, it is to be welcomed. Now, ultimately, I do feel like there's something in you that needs to, there's that phrase, get your ducks in a row. What that means is really within yourself, find an understanding of what's been there before, where you've been, what you're really wanting going forward from here, because ultimately the experiences you attract this month are all part of helping you to reach that clarity. I know that the energies of all those squares that I spoke about as soon as this video began, well, they can be hard, but it is going to give way to a set of circumstances that is way easier and way more hopeful once we navigate into next month. For those of you just starting to date someone, if there ever was a moment of truth, it is coming. And mid-month, in an instant, it feels like whatever you think this is or hope it is, it just flips. It changes in some way. It starts to look different to you in some way, especially at this time. So pace yourself as you move forward from here, but know that whatever it is that needs to come forward, there is a sense of getting clarity as to how you really feel about this person and whether or not there's the ability to really have a foundation with this person. Can you build that strong sense of where it is both of you are starting from to grow forward from here or not? You're going to understand the risks and challenges and possibilities of all of that. There's not a lot of kidding yourself here, but there is some difficult truth, and that might just be about you, your own fears, your own conditioning, but it might be about some literal circumstance with this person. And it's information that needs to be welcomed because it'll help you to understand what it is you might want to do next. And for those of you in an established bond, for the overwhelming majority, there's going to be greater discussions around the living situation, how you feel about it, if the two of you live together, what needs to change, if you want to live with this person, or if you're not sure, or if it's felt like it's been put off. Well, it becomes an important part of the conversation now. You get to decide what it is that you want to share, and that includes in terms of your living space or not, how much of your family of origin you want to share or not. These are going to be some guiding insights and questions that could find you at this time. Now, for a very, very small percent, where it is that there have been issues in the relationship, just know that it just might be, it's not that family gives you a reality check, but the behavior of your family or their family might be exactly what you need to have the wake-up call you need to understand what it is you might want to do next with this person. If your relationship is good and you're super happy, that's wonderful. Just know there might be a need for some compromise or a need to be more honest with each other as to how much you want to share living space or what you want the living space to be or look like, whether that's now or next. And approaching it with honesty, but also sensitivity, could help the two of you find the right answers to create welcoming environments for you both. What I love about this month for you, there's so much here. It's a powerful and meaningful astrological moment. Well, I'm going to say I love, okay, here's the thing. I know we've got energies that are tough. I jumped right into them as soon as we started this month's video. for good reason, because the energies can feel rather consequential with all those squares, especially as soon as we reach the 15th and we get Jupiter square Saturn, Jupiter square Neptune. Those energies can feel disillusioning. Then you add to it, just a few days later, the sun follows up. And then you add to it, we get a new moon that follows up with all of that. And there can be a lot of tension, especially for the Aries out there, now that you are hosting Saturn and Neptune both. And yet, this is a moment of honesty. Yes, for some, there might be some disappointment, but it is valuable because it helps you to see where it is that in some area important to you, well, you might have been kidding yourself. You might have been deluding yourself even. And now that you know some truth about yourself, about a matter, maybe about another person, well, it helps you to be a lot more clear about where it is your starting point actually is, what it is you actually want to do next, but more importantly, who it is you actually are and who it is you truly want to be. It's the beginning of a more extended journey, especially with Saturn very newly in your sign. That's energy that you'll get a little bit of a break from a little later this year, but it is going to be once we step forward into the new year of 2026, you're going to have Saturn in your sign going all the way into 2028 for a nicer, longer stay. So this is your first taste of understanding that Saturn's energies, they can be serious. Getting honest with ourselves sometimes can feel difficult. And yet it's difficult in accordance to how much it is that we haven't wanted to see some truth that might have been there all along. We just weren't ready to acknowledge it. And regardless of what that truth relates to, once it shows up, well, it is to be embraced because it represents the beginning of building something tangible, rooted in ultimately what it is that's really going to make you genuinely happy. Well, thank you so much for watching. You can get a video like this each and every week for each and every sign for as low as just $3 a month. We choose your membership rate over at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com or thefutureismagical.com. Higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com. Links are below. Thank you again for watching. It'll be a great month. Enjoy.